we are walking into an era where there's going to be a lot of crap being sold around. Vanilla everything. It's the same stuff all over the place. You're talking about 2 to 3 people that most of their job was carefully copying and pasting stuff from multiple sources into one system in order to know how the company needs to operate. The core of the business depends on that report being done successfully, and now it happens automatically without anybody touching. So you can imagine that these people that now can worry about, okay, how do we strategically change this? How do we look at better transportation methods? How can we save money on packaging? It now becomes a completely different question than, oh, my job is to copy and paste Excel tables.
From your perspective, how has AI implementation changed between the start of 2024 and the start of 2025?
Wow, that's your first question? Okay. No, it's an awesome question. I would say there's 3 different factors that have changed dramatically that really impact the way people implement it. One is the level of knowledge. I think forget about knowledge, awareness. I think in the beginning of 2024, most people still didn't have a clue what AI is, what it could potentially do, and so on. And I think in 2025, at least the beginning of 2025, most business people know that AI exists. They know that it can impact their business. They know that it could be transformative to what they do, regardless of what they're doing. I still think that most business people, at least the ones I talk to, and I get to talk on stages a lot, and some of them are big stages, and I talk to people on LinkedIn and the podcast and so on. So I get to talk to a lot of business people. Most of them still don't know how, but they're at least aware. So the first thing is awareness. The second thing is, I think, the maturity of the technology, right? We had large language models that were okay in the beginning of 2024. We have large language models that are exceptional on many, many, many different business tasks at the beginning of 2025. We have the infancy of AI agents, and we can dive more into that afterwards if you want to, or the differences, or why does it make any difference. But we have AI agents. We have significantly more capable image and video generation capabilities, avatar generation capabilities, a lot of stuff that either didn't exist or just wasn't good enough in the beginning of 2024 is ready for prime time in 2025. And I think the last kind of like piece of component is infrastructure. I think there are more and more companies that provide the infrastructure to make this thing run in a self-secure, well-managed way that did not exist in the beginning of 2024, unless you were, an enterprise with an IT company of 600 people, then you could hire the people to figure it out. But right now, you have platforms that will basically give it you out of the box, whether you're running AWS or Google Cloud or Azure or anything else. There's most likely an AI layer built in on top of that almost with a flick of a button, you can activate and start engaging with, while choosing your models, choosing your level of security, choosing what he has access to, and so on. So I think on both 3 aspects, the awareness of the people, the quality of the actual technology, and the infrastructure to run it, all has made a very, very big step forward.
Interesting. With those 3 things in mind, the awareness, the technology, and the infrastructure, how do you distill that down when you're in that sales process? So when someone comes into you and they maybe book a call with you and they're interested in AI implementation, what is the difference that you sell them? Because it's all good and well to know what awareness is and the infrastructure and the technology, but what is the change that you sell them to see in their business that makes them go, yes, it makes sense, I'm ready to go?
Also, great question. I think it depends a lot, and it depends on the company, but it comes down to, I always look at this both from top down and from bottom up. Meaning, I always look at the strategic aspect of this and I look at the tactical aspect of this. And the reality is the strategic aspect will have significantly bigger impact from an ROI, from a risk analysis perspective, and so on, but it will also take longer to implement and make that change. And then there's the bottom up things that are the more tactical stuff. And let me break this down into the 2 extremes. So on the strategic level, I always tell people, you got to ask yourself several different questions. Question number 1 is, what in your industry is going to change that will impact what your clients are willing to pay for because they have access to AI, right? So there might be goods and services that you're selling right now that are either going to diminish in value or will be completely unnecessary either now or in the next 2 to 3 years, because your clients will have access to tools that they don't have access to today at almost no cost in most cases. So that's a risk that you need to analyze and understand and diversify away from. Otherwise, you'll be in very serious trouble when this thing starts evolving. So that's one aspect. The flip side of that is you might be able to provide additional services and additional products and other things to your clients because you have access to AI, and those kind of offerings didn't make any sense from an ROI perspective if you had to hire 65 people to do the thing that now can be done for free. So there are goods and services that you can sell to your existing clients that you couldn't do before, either effectively or profitably, that you will be able to, or maybe already able to right now, if you just look at it, that can make you more money. That could either just help you grow or, again, help you diversify from the risks that are coming because of what we talked about before. And the third question is a secondary benefit, which is you might be able to serve new kinds of clients that you couldn't serve before because you couldn't access that market, again, because of ROI, bandwidth, language barriers, whatever the case may be, that you now can do with AI. So again, it allows you to grow the business to areas that you couldn't grow into before. So that's on the strategic side. And that's in 5 minutes. I do this in 2-hour sessions and then 6 weeks of, hands-on work with a committee. But on a mindset perspective, that's like the starting point. The bottom up side is more on where can we save time, money, resources right now on tasks and activities that our company does every single day or every single week or several times a month that AI can help us do faster, better, cheaper. And so the combination of these two things is, on the tactical side, you can win very, very quickly. And even on the tactical side, I tell people, prioritize the task based on what provides the most amount of value to the company. So creating the list is actually relatively easy. And if you want, we can dive into that. Like how to get a list of the 67 things that AI can help you do in your business, like today. But then, okay, you're not going to implement 67 things today. You will start with 1 and then 2 and then 3. And so prioritize them based on 3 different things. Prioritize them based on what supports the top line, basically generates more sales or faster. 2 is what supports the bottom line, meaning what's going to save us time and money in operations and so on. So our bottom line, even if we don't grow sales, is better. And the third one, which in my book is as important, what do your employees hate doing? Like, what are the tedious tasks that nobody likes to do, but they have to do it because it's a part of what needs to be done, and maybe nobody needs to do it anymore. And then you have happy customers and happy clients and happy employees because you're delivering better goods faster and nobody has to do the tedious, annoying work that nobody likes doing. So that's how you kind of pick those tasks or prioritize the tasks in order to actually implement them across the company.
Yeah, I think we could get granular with it, but I think people understand, especially the top line and the bottom line, right? As like, how can we save ourselves time and money, or how can we save our clients time and money? What I think is more interesting is the employee satisfaction part. In your experience, how has AI made employees happier so far, and how do you see that changing more in the future?
The future question is problematic because I'm not making any bets beyond a year from now what's going to happen. And I think it's problematic because I think it's very, very obvious that it's going to take jobs away. And it's going to take a lot of jobs away. And it's going to take a lot of high-paying jobs away. And the implications of that on society, the implications of that on the economy, the implications of that is unclear to anyone, by the way. Not a single person on the planet right now knows what it means for a Western developed country to have 30% unemployment in white-collar jobs. Like, nobody knows what that means because it never happened. But I have a feeling we're walking there with open eyes and we're going to get to the cliff and try to figure it out. But I'm putting that aside for a second. Let's talk about short-term satisfaction. I absolutely see that. And I see that with every single company that I work with or communities I engage with. I'll give you simple examples. One of my clients, they're a large retailer in the apparel space, and they have inventory across, I don't know how many warehouses, and they work with all the big retailers you can think of. So Walmart, Amazon, Target, you name it, they're there. And they have to do weekly reports on the status of who sold what, how much was it, which warehouse has to facilitate that, where are things. And it's a freaking nightmare because it comes from 15 different platforms in 35 different formats. And literally people have to manually copy and paste things from different reports into one Excel table that then can analyze the data, that then can tell them what was happening in their business. Now, that's not a mom and pop shop. They're a multi-$100 million company coming up on $1 billion. And there's just not a good solution for that because that's how it was always done. And within a day of work, one day, we're able to develop AI solutions that will read all these reports and will aggregate all the data in a format that now in automation can run and do the thing that it needs to do. So you're talking about 2 to 3 people that most of their job was carefully copying and pasting stuff from multiple sources into one system in order to know how the company needs to operate. Like it wasn't like a side thing it literally, the core of the business depends on that report being done successfully. And now it happens automatically without anybody touching it. So you can imagine that these people that now can worry about, okay, how do we strategically change this? How do we look at better transportation methods? How can we save money on packaging? It now becomes a completely different question than, oh, my job is to copy and paste Excel tables. And I can give you a gazillion different examples like that. The other thing that I see that is very, very important, I think one of the hardest things for people in general is getting started. And that's true for anything, like going to the gym, starting a diet, like whatever the case may be. But getting started, we need to get started with a blank sheet of paper multiple times a day as employees, writing an email. So sometimes you kind of know what you need to write, but sometimes you don't. Creating a marketing campaign, like, okay, what is it going to be about? Who are we going to feature? What are going to be the products or services that we're going to do for Q1 or for January 17th or whatever the case may be? Writing a review of an employee. You start with a blank sheet, like you got to go back. There is zero reason to start with a blank sheet of paper, anything that you're doing, because AI is very, very, very good, better than most people in taking data and turning it into a very good first draft. Now, this could be a 1-step process, this could be a 17-step process, but you could get to a point where you don't have to start as the human with a blank sheet of paper on anything that you're doing, because AI can get you X number of steps into that process. And then you can take it from there, which makes your life a lot easier, because the hardest part is those first 20 to 30%.
I think I had a conversation with Ruben Hassid this morning, and we were talking about exactly this, right? Is that you don't need to start with a blank sheet. But I think what the difference maker is going to be is that only people with taste and experience will be able to see that first draft that's been generated with AI and decide, okay, that's good enough to go to the next level, or okay, it's not good enough. And I think what we're seeing is like really anti-logical in my mind, right? It's like everyone assumes that AI is just going to do your job for you and like everyone's going to be able to do amazing things. And it's like, it's not the case. You'll be able to get a good first draft, but to get it to perfect, you do need to have understood that skill on a manual level beforehand to be able to take it to the next level, which I think my theory for this is that because there's so many high school and college students not understanding what the manual process is on the back end and just using AI, they're going to be without that ability to understand like what's actually good and what's not good. And it's going to make this market that we jump into less competitive, because there's only a limited amount of people that are bothered to go through the manual process before they add AI as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think so. There's two sides to the story that you're talking about, right? One of it is that collaboration between humans and AI, and it's a collaboration. And by the way, going back to what I said in the beginning about the tools getting better, like one of my favorite tools right now is Canvas within ChatGPT, because it's an amazing collaborative tool where I can go in and ask it to write a segment for me or change something that I wrote, but I can also go in and type what I need or change like it's just such a great collaborative environment where I have an AI assistant that is fully there with me through the process, understanding the context and so on, but it's still me as a big part of the inputs into that. So I agree with you completely that we are walking into an era where there's going to be a lot of crap being sold around, or let's not call it crap, vanilla everything. Like it's the same stuff all over the place because you don't really know, you don't have the depth to either. And I'll say something else. I think you can get the depth from AI if you know how to use AI properly, but most people don't. Most people know how to use AI either not at all or on a very superficial level. So they don't know how to do the 5 steps that a human should have done, like doing the initial research and then the analysis of the data and then defining a project or a process and then start. Now you can do each and every one of the steps with the support of AI, but just going to step 7 and saying, oh, create a blog post for me. Guess what? It's not going to be a great blog post. And so, and this is just one example. The same is true across everything. So I agree with you 100%. What I do think is what we're going to see is that if you'll have 1 or 2 or 3, or depending on the size of the company, but a few people in the company that know how to do the setup of the AI systems in a proper way, where they have access to the right data, where they have the right context, meaning they understand the company, they understand the business, they understand the role, they understand the industry, they understand what's currently happening in the economy, they understand, because somebody in your business gave them that for your business, for your role. A unexperienced person coming out of college, or skip college altogether, because what the hell's the point, will be able to use these systems because somebody else set it up correctly and it has all that background information. Now, will an experienced person will be able to do more with it? Absolutely, 100%, hands down. The problem that I see, and now I'm talking about the bad, negative, long-term impacts, is let's expand what you said, right? Let's think about writing code, right? So these systems became very, very good at writing code. They can probably replace many junior developers. But if you don't have junior developers, how do you get to a team lead and from there to a system architect and from there to a CTO? Like how do get people to do that if they've never done the basic stuff? The same thing is true with law. Like you probably don't need paralegals anymore. But if you don't start with very basic law tasks or being, an intern in a law firm or an associate, and then to go to the next level, like if you don't need that, how do you get more advanced people? And the same is true in so many different tasks that I don't really know how that is going to evolve. But it's a question that I don't think enough people are asking.
Interesting. Maybe it goes down to the people that will succeed in this next iteration will be people that have enough agency that say, I don't care that developers are already being replaced. I'm going to go and learn this myself from the start. Do you know what I mean? People that put themselves through that pain manually, I think, is going to be a smaller percentage that do so, but the percentage that do so are going to have such a significant competitive advantage. But I wonder if there'll be any, I guess, like a given track put out there by companies or colleges or universities. We'll see. It's an interesting one.
Yeah. It's again, there are a lot of unanswered social questions with this whole AI thing.
I want to bring things back to something you touched on. So when you gave the example of that retail organization, you described the complexity of it, and what it kind of rings a bell in my head for is this idea of technical debt. As companies having these kind of outdated systems old organizations. I was wondering if you could have explained a bit more about what technical debt is and your experience with working with different companies and how you're managing to overcome that with AI.
Yeah, great question. Great questions. But but
Music to my ears.
yeah. Awesome. So technical debt, right? So companies, especially older, bigger companies, over the years, acquire, install, distribute, manage more and more systems. And in many cases, they don't replace an old system. They add more systems because they either functionality that didn't exist before. There's a BI system. Oh my God, we never had business intelligence platform. So let's add that on top of our stuff. Or it's quasi replaces some of the stuff that they were doing, but not everything. So they keep the old system and so on. So over time, you end up with a hodgepodge of multiple systems. And when I say multiple, people think, oh, 6 or 7. No, companies have 60, 70 different IT tools that are running across the company and sometimes more. And the problem becomes when you try to figure out what's actually happening in the business, each and every one of those systems is a silo. Yes, it has an input, it has an output. You can sometimes see reports on what's happening in there, but now you want to see what's happening across the business, where it comes to, oh, I have suppliers and I have inventory and I have distribution and I have clients and I have sales and I have marketing and I have HR internally. And I know this person is going on maternity leave and she runs all these projects. So that's going to impact, like there's all these things are interconnected from a company perspective, but they're completely siloed from a technology perspective. And that's has always been a problem for companies. One of the things that happened in the past few years that now AI gives a very big boost to is the concept of data lakes. So historically, when you think I'm now going to geek out a little bit, I'm going to try to keep it very high level for the listeners, right? So historically, data was stored in a data warehouse. That is server or servers that could be in your company or some kind of a cloud by Google, Amazon, etc. And it has a very structured set of tables. Basically, the database is structured into multiple tables with very set clear information in each and every one, and you can connect them and so on. The disadvantage, again, these are siloed in specific systems and so on. And then came out the concept of a data lake and now a data lake house, which kind of data lake house combines the capabilities of a data warehouse and a data lake. But not to geek out too much, the biggest benefit of a data lake is that it allows you to pour all the information you have, structured and unstructured, emails, calls recording, videos, et cetera, et cetera. So unstructured data into this one huge data container. And then you can use AI layers to query that. So again, historically, if you wanted to query anything, somebody had to write code, usually Python, to write queries to get you the information to then display it on a dashboard somewhere. Now, AI can do a lot of that stuff on its own, either one time for most of the company on specific things, or on the fly as you need things. You can ask the question, the AI will write the code on the fly and will give you answers from all these data sources all at once. The other benefit of pouring data into a data lake house is that you get your own duplicate of the data. Meaning, let's say company X that all your data is running on runs out of business tomorrow, or has a catastrophic event because somebody hacked their systems. Let's say Salesforce is down for 2 days. What do you do? Well, for most companies, that's a big deal. But if you have a replication of the data in a data lake house, you have access. Now, it's not new data, but the existing data you have access to, and it's interconnected to everything else. So there are tools today to move from the historical way of we have multiple data warehouses, each hosts specific pieces of data in a specific structure, to this more unified environment that gives you more flexibility in how you can access the data and complete visibility into everything at the same time, while finding relationships that you may even not know of between different pieces of data.
Aside from data, what are some other common challenges, common misconceptions that you get from the businesses that you talk to that maybe I wouldn't think of unless I had a business myself?
So before we dive into data and infrastructure and all of that, the two main things, the two biggest, kind of like things that will tell you whether a business is going to be successful or not successful with AI implementation have nothing to do with IT and has nothing to do with historical data and has nothing to do with that. It has to do with two things: leadership buy-in, training and education. If you don't have these two things, this company will not successfully implement AI in the business, even if they buy and they spend money on the best IT systems on the planet. And the flip is true as well, meaning you can spend very little money on IT, but have solid buy-in from your leadership and good training for your team, and you can do magic with AI tools that are cheap and available without any fancy installations and IT infrastructure. And so I've seen that hundreds of times because I work with many, many different companies. These are the two things that are the biggest hints whether you're going to see a successful AI implementation or not.
A subsequent question from that then, if the two biggest thing is education, training, and leadership and buy-in, what is the lowest touch but highest impact activity that a business can do with AI in 2025? Is it simply educating themselves on how to use AI? Is it speaking to their line manager, the CEO, their CTO that we need to do this? Is there anything else that a company can start doing that they'll start seeing an impact immediately on?
So let's break this down into two things. One, it depends which role you're in the company. If you're in a senior role in the company, you need to start taking action, right? Yourself. And bring this to the C-suite, bring this to the board. If you're it, then even better, like if you're the CEO. And again, the companies that I work with that see the most success, it's the CEO and the two closest people to him that are driving this AI train in the business. And then it works because then there's attention, then there's resources, then it's obvious to everybody that this is important to the CEO, so everybody's on board. And so on and so forth. So if you're in that leadership position, great. If you're not, my recommendation to people is look in your universe of the stuff that you can control and find the one or two use cases that you can do magic with AI and do it yourself. Don't ask for anything, just go and implement the thing. Now, if there's secure data and stuff like that, I mean, don't come to me afterwards, say, hey, I lost my job because Isar told me on Liam's podcast, do the thing. Don't. If there's baggage, then be careful. But assuming there's no secure data and you're not doing anything stupid, go and implement the use case and go to your manager or to his manager or the boss or the C-suite or the VP or whatever and say, hey, look what we've done. I've taken this tool, I've been running it for a week and a half or 6 weeks, and I was able to save this amount of money, this amount of time. And I have these 3 other use cases that I want to implement, but for that, I will need budget and I will need this and that. And you're most likely going to get it. And this is kind of like the grassroots approach of do something that you know that is doable quickly, show results, 2 or 3 use cases, then go show that to the right people, then get buy-in and do like the grassroots approach. I've seen people get up to CEOs of large companies through this exact approach and manage to get the buy-in and now start a committee and do all the other stuff that needs to happen. So this is on the people aspect. On the system aspect, on the training aspect, I do myself 4 kinds of training, right? I have like an online course that people can take. I have a course that I teach that like it's still online, but it's like a instructor-led versus like a self-paced course. I do dedicated workshops that are 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, stuff like that for specific companies and specific organizations. But the thing is like a 2-day condensed training to a company. And what happens then is several different things. First of all, everybody stops what they're doing. So there's no distractions. Everybody stops what they're doing for 48 hours and they sink into AI and they're all into that. So that's benefit number 1. Benefit number 2, it is tailored to the needs of the specific organization and it ends like most of the second day. The way I do this is a hackathon where people in the company, after a day and a quarter of training and learning use cases and tools and so on, actually come into groups of 2 people to 12 people, depending how big the event is. Like the most I've done this to was like 70 people. We break into groups, and each group works on an actual business use case, something the company needs that was identified during this process. And then at the end of the second day, they have actual tangible ROI from 2 days. Like it's not, oh, let's invest 3 months, 6 months, and so on. And it builds a lot of excitement and momentum because everybody's now talking about this, because you have, usually I do this is for, the kind of like middle management all the way to the top leadership. And so you have, and sometimes they invite specific people from specific departments that are below that level. But then you have everybody's talking about this. It's exciting, it's fun, you get immediate results. People see what it can do, they get skills, they get to see it in action, they get their hands dirty. And that builds a lot of momentum and excitement in the company beyond just the knowledge and stuff like that. And so you asked, what is the best way to get started? And it doesn't have to be me, by the way, but that's the best way to get started. Just bring the right people in the room, lock them in there for not an hour, but a day, 2 days, 3 days, with very structured, well-defined training that also involves hands-on experimentation on actual business use cases. That gets the snowball rolling, and from there it's a snowball.
I love the focus on practicality, and I want to just dive into that on a granular level if possible. You mentioned the AI tools and stuff that you're kind of experimenting with and showing people how to use. I was wondering if you could actually expand on what those AI tools that you're using, you're teaching people about, and maybe what are the biggest wow moments where you're teaching someone, they're like, whoa, I had no idea that this could do this.
We have 3 hours, 4 hours. How long do we have to?
Give me the 3-minute condensed version.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, there's the obvious suspects, right? So I think, like I said, I think most people know how to use the obvious tools, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Perplexity on a very superficial level. And learning how to use these tools better is a game changer. So just even and that's why I said, like, forget about investments in anything. Just take the tools as is, as they are today, no future versions. The amount of stuff you can do with them is endless. If I have to dive a layer deeper into that, I would add 2 very important things. One is, actually 3. One is automations built into these tools. So ChatGPT has custom GPTs, Claude has projects, Perplexity has spaces, like each and every one of them has a different name. Gemini has gems. But what you can do, and by the way, from all of those I just mentioned, ChatGPT is ahead as of right now. So we're recording this again, just January 8th at 2:45 p.m. This may change tomorrow because they may come up with something new. But as of right now, from those mini automations, custom GPTs are better than all the other mini automation tools. But you can take literally dozens of daily tasks that happen in your company and build mini automations within ChatGPT to do them for you. Now, in some cases, they will do the full task. In some cases, they will do 20%, 50%, whatever the case may be. But there are multiple tasks across every single department where if you teach your people how to develop these GPTs, they can build it for themselves and then automate a lot of the stuff that they're doing. So this would be kind of like a subset of these main tools. Another thing that I really, really like that people go to like have the holy crap moment is a tool called Hunch that I actually found about a month ago. And what Hunch allows you to do is it's a canvas where you can connect as many of these tools together with zero knowledge. Like it's literally you open a box like you would do in a flow chart, and you can choose what that box will be. It will be ChatGPT, it will be Claude, it will be Gemini, it will be Perplexity, it will be a image generation tool, it will be whatever, all the tools that are out there, and they keep adding more and more and more. And now you can combine them into these incredibly magical processes that can do stuff that will blow your mind. And so that just gives you a complete additional level of sophistication of the process, but B, flexibility to use different tools for different steps in the process without being too techy. So yes, there's the tools like Make and Zapier and NA10 that has been around forever as far as automation tools, and you can connect them to ChatGPT, but you need some level of technical knowledge to use these tools. With Hunt, you need nothing. It's you literally connect lines between boxes where you can type in, and that's it. And so they've solved a lot of the tech knowledge that you need in order to use these tools. So that's another tool that I really like. Research. So data research is a big deal in almost any role. This could be internal research, like I want to know from all these call recordings that I have from the past month, why were some successful more than others, whether it's sales calls or customer service calls, or external research. I want to know what's happening in my industry. I want to know what's happening with these kind of products. I want to know what's happening with the economy, et cetera. And there are several different tools that do an amazing job at that. I use Perplexity now all the time. So Perplexity is fantastic just for day-to-day. For me, it replaced Google probably 80% of the time. So I use a lot more Perplexity than I use Google. When I need to do deeper research, my tool is you.com, so you.com. And now there's another tool that is presumably the same, which I didn't get a chance to do a fair comparison yet, which is Gemini Deep Research. So if you have the advanced Gemini tool in the drop-down menu, you can select Gemini 1.5 Pro Deep Research, and then it does something very similar. And what it does, and you.com does the same thing. The benefit of you.com is that it's free versus the Gemini Advanced that costs money. So what it does, it kind of tries to figure out what you're actually trying to find out. It will give itself 5, 6, 7, 8 things to research. You will research 100 to 150 websites, and then will generate a report that then you can ask follow-up questions about. So again, it's things that companies have whole departments doing research for them. And now anybody can do this faster than they can write the email to the research department, right? So, and I'll add one more and then I'll stop because we can really do this all day, is data analysis. So data analysis, every company, every role has access to data, right? This could be financial data. This could be employee performance data. This could be marketing data. This could be sales data. This could be there's data everywhere in companies. And most tools give us some visibility and dashboards and stuff like that to see what's going on. But in many cases, you can know a lot more if you had the technical skills to do deeper data analysis. And now we all do. You can take an Excel file, preferably convert it to a flat, very simple CSV versus a sophisticated Excel file. And you can upload it into Gemini or upload it into ChatGPT and start doing very sophisticated data analysis. Because what happens is these tools, both Gemini and ChatGPT, will actually write Python code, which is what data analysts do, and will figure out the information from the data. Now, to tell people you said, okay, what's the oh my God moment? The biggest file I've uploaded just to show off into one of these tools was a CSV file of all the real estate transactions in one of the states in the US. I think it was Pennsylvania for 15 years. It has 1.1 million rows of data. There is no tool that I know of as a non-techie, non-developer person that can even open that file. If you try to upload a file to Excel that has 15,000 rows, it will probably come to a halt. This thing had 1.1 million rows. And then you can ask in simple English any question that you want. And you can get the output either as a detailed report, bullet points, graph, or all of the above. Show me a bar chart of the changes in price per square footage in these 5 cities from 2015 to 2021 over a month for only commercial real estate. And it will do it in about 15 to 20 seconds. Now, I used to run a $100 million travel company. I had an AI and BI team. I used to send them questions like that, obviously not about real estate, but about data in our travel business. And I will send them an email, and they will tell me, okay, we'll get to this tomorrow. And I was the CEO, but it was always tomorrow because we were working on other stuff. And then they would write the code and they will get the thing and they will send it to me. So now it's another day. And I will look at it and say, oh my God, it's not exactly what I meant. I should have explained myself better. And now the cycle goes again. And then I finally get what I wanted. And like, ooh, now I have a follow-up question. Now that I know this, and this process used to take 3, 4, 5 days. And now in the same amount of time it took me to write the email, I get the results. That's magic to anyone who needs to make decisions in any level in a company, because it allows you to know stuff that nobody else knows. And you can do it in seconds. So these are like big aha things that I see all the time.
I think the real aha moment I've had is with the combination of data analytics and projects. So my idea, when projects first released, was like, why don't I just create the best, most intelligent business partner with the best memory on the entire planet? So I opened projects and I said to ChatGPT, I said, ask me an unlimited amount of questions until you understand every single aspect of my business, of what we do, what our numbers are, what the analytics are, what our logos are, what's our color scheme. And I just went through for days and days and days and days and days and fed it information. And now when I want to know what our MRR is on school, I go and ask ChatGPT, what was our MRR a month ago? What is it now? I need you to grab me the logo for X, Y, and Z and the color scheme for this with the hex codes. Go and do that. What is our newsletter trajectory? What do we focus on? What's our tagline for this part of the business? And it knows it. And the beautiful part of this is you could take that data analytics. You said, oh, I can go query this and find out exactly what I need to know. And then you can ask ChatGPT, all right, how should I apply this information as well? So you've got that person to bounce off now that has a perfect memory as well, which I think is something that's underutilized. And something that I'm really seeing is like, I'm so, excuse my French, fucking excited about is when we add a layer of AI agents on top of this. When I can train AI agents for specific roles based on all of our company's data, this is where it becomes insane. It's like, where's the ceiling with this? We don't really know yet, but for anyone that knows how these things work and has educated themselves on what's actually happening right now, we're at such an inflection point in history where if like you're in this, you can really take yourself to the next level in the next couple of years, and it's beyond exciting.
First of all, I love what you said. I did something very similar myself, but I'll up you one to add to that. The cool thing is you can create, so you basically created an executive assistant, right? But you can take it to the next level and create an advisory board. And on the advisory board, you can either bring actual people as long as they've written enough stuff online. So you can have Jim Collins on your advisory board because you can say, okay, I want you to act as Jim Collins only based on these 3 books that I totally believe in and I write my business by. And I want to be able to ask you questions about this. And I want you to play devil's advocate through the lens of these books for every decision that I make and everything I'm going to ask you. So this is number 1. Number 2, you can go and say, I want to build a persona. It's not an existing person, but I want that person to be an IT expert that knows about Microsoft systems, that knows how to set them up, knows all the disadvantages and so on. And I want him to be involved every time I call him into the thing. And you can create these personas in GPTs, like custom GPTs. And then you can have a conversation with them. The cool thing is you can let them have the conversation while you're watching. And you can give them names. So you can have Joe from IT, Gina from finance, and Jeff from HR. And you can give them the data. So this is what I'm thinking of doing. I'm considering either getting this system for the people that we're hiring or that system for the people that we're hiring. I want you to browse the internet and I want you to each bring your opinion on the pros and cons of each and every one of those systems. And you can obviously interject whenever you want, but they will literally go ahead and have a conversation between themselves. So it's stuff that sounds like science fiction, only it's available right now. Now, right now, as of a month ago, you can do this in voice as well. So you can literally click on the microphone button and have a conversation with the imaginary Jim Collins, or a lot of people that I know run businesses based on EOS, right? So the book Traction. You can have an EOS consultant and you can bounce any questions you have through, okay, I want to solve this through the EOS concepts. This is a situation that I have. Ask, just like you said, ask me anything you want to know more about the situation, then help me come up with a solution. And we'll ask you 5 to 10 questions and you can answer in your voice. You don't have to type. And then it will give you a suggestion on how the EOS framework suggests you solve these kind of problems. We used to do this. We would hire an EOS consultant. We would pay them $1,000 an hour, and we will get these kind of results 2 days later. And now you can do this in 20 seconds. So yes, I agree with you. This is the ability to have advisors and assistants on any topic, external or internal, for practically free. $20 a month is $200 a month, $2,000 a month for this kind of stuff is free in a business perspective. So yes, I'm excited about that as well.
We've never had better access to information and being able to act on it. I think about this with podcasting all the time. I love listening to podcasts because I can listen to people that are masters of their field all day, every day, and I'm getting free access to this, and I have to sit through maybe one advertisement that I have full ability to skip over if I want. No, I don't want to hear about AG1 again. That's fine. I'll just skip a minute forward, no problem. Jumping in on podcasting, you've done over 150 episodes now, all right? And the way that you've put the verbiage for this is that each episode brings insightful discussions on how AI can ethically transform business practices, offering practical solutions to day-to-day business practices. Before we jump into ethical AI and how we develop that, I want to ask you more about the entrepreneurs that you speak to. So with doing 150 episodes, you must know, or you must notice some common traits and characteristics amongst these different AI entrepreneurs. What would you say they are?
Number one, curiosity, right? All these people, so the people I interview are the best practitioners I can find online. Like I see people doing cool shit. I'm like, oh my God, people need to know how to do this. And I would reach out to them. And my rule is very, very clear. Like you have to show me how you do this. Don't tell me what you do. I couldn't care less. Like I want you to open the kimono and show me exactly how you're doing the thing you're doing. What tools you're using, what prompts you're using, how do you connect the things. And so all my episodes are highly tactical. The goal is when you finish listening, you can go and do this in your business. That's the whole point of the podcast. And you ask me what's the number one trait that I see in all of them? Crazy curiosity. Like they will do what I do. There's a new tool. They will spend the $20 to get the professional version, at least for 1 month. And they will spend a few good hours, usually late at night because they have a day job. And they will play around and they will see what they can get. And they will share what they can get with other people. So other people can benefit from it as well. So I would say number one thing is curiosity. Number two, and it has to do with something that I'm sure happened to you. I know it happened to me, and it happens to people as they do this more, is you develop an AI muscle. And that AI muscle allows you to see everything you see through an AI lens. Every problem, every process, every situation, you're like, I know how I might be able to solve this. And in many cases, it's a combination of 2 or 3 different tools with a specific process that you either did yourself or you saw somebody else doing. So you develop that ability to look at things through a different lens because you have the understanding of what these tools can do, of what limitations they have, but what other tools might be able to complement the things that the limitations exist. And it allows you to tackle a much broader set of problems and hit a much higher set of goals because you know that. And I think the combination of these two things is probably the biggest common denominators between all these people that I interview, because they come from all across the board. Some of them are CEOs of bigger companies that just happen to implement AI in their business. Some are solopreneurs. Some do video generation. Some are in HR. Like they're all in business. Like the goal is to look at AI processes in business. But the commonality is curiosity willing to spend time to experiment because of your curiosity, and developing that muscle of looking at problems through that lens.
With that focus on practical and tactical AI, you're jumping in. How do I actually use this? You're asking the question, how, and you're exploring that. What is the most transformative thing that you've taken from a guest and then implemented into your own routine or system?
There's a very long list of that. So one of the benefits of being a podcast host, as you know, is you can invite whoever you want. And probably 99% of people say yes. And it allows you to go and research and get a microscope into the processes that they're doing. So a lot of the processes that I have in my business, I've developed based on stuff that I've seen other people do. And by the way, most of these people don't hide their stuff. That's how I found them. I found them because they share their stuff. I just get to ask very specific questions on very specific things that they do. But the some big things that I do that are very, very helpful. One is lead capture and lead nurturing using different AI automation tools. And I've done several different episodes about topics like that, where there are multiple tools today who know how to grab data from LinkedIn, from Facebook, from your email, from website visitors, and then go and get more information about these people, who they are, what they do, what role they hold, what they posted recently, all these kind of things. So basically build a persona around them, filter based on your ICP. So I only want people from the US who are between these ages, who hold these roles in companies that are more than $2 million in revenue, but less than $200 million. Like, you can build that persona, filter to that, and then generate cold outreach messages that are tailored to each and every one of those people based on the role, based on the company, based on what they wrote, based on what they commented on your post, and so on. This to me is nothing short of black magic, right? Because it's what good salespeople are supposed to do. Only you can't hire enough people to do this across all those different channels. And now you can do this for, again, almost free at scale and generate leads when you sleep. So this is, to me, one of the big ones that many, many, many businesses know nothing about.
Can you give me the hit list of the tools? I mean, one that I know of is Clay, but there's obviously, you've got into this to like a further degree.
I use Clay. I use it in combination with some of the tools that are built into Clay to get some more data about, email addresses and so on. So Clay would be my number one recommendation for stuff like that. I use a tool that I never remember what it's called. It's kind of like, how ChatGPT is the dumbest product name in history. So the other one that I use is kind of the same, and I can find the email from them. But and by the way, there's a bunch of others that do the same thing. But what this tool does, it's like R2B2B, something like that. You're like, okay, how do you expect me to talk about your tool? But what it does, it's a line of code that sits on my website that can identify anyone, or not anyone, but about 60% of the people that visit the website, even if they don't do a thing. They don't fill a form, they don't click on anything, they just show up on the website. I get a notification that flows into Clay, so then I can collect more information about them. But even just what I get their first name, last name, the company they work for, the size of the business, what their role is. Like, most of the stuff that Clay knows how to find, it knows how to find on its own. And they have a free version that is limited with some stuff, but it's like, this is freaking insane. And so think about how many people go to your website and you know nothing about them, and you have all these pop-ups to get them to fill up their email address so you can approach them. And you don't need that because it doesn't know all of them, but it knows a lot more than zero, which is what you know otherwise. So tools like that are, to me, really, really powerful and capable in driving real business results.
I think we just touched on that, but again, I want to go back to the description of your podcast. We've touched on it in multiple points, so I really want to dive into it now. You talk about how AI can ethically transform business practices. What does that look like in your teaching, your education, your podcast, your implementation? How do you ensure some degree of ethics amongst all of this?
So here's the thing, right? At the end of the day, it's people, right? People are people. And people, each person and each company culture have their own line in the sand of what they're willing and not willing to do in order to be successful. And that's different for different companies and for different individuals. And so that was true always. Like companies have cheated since the beginning of time, and people have cheated since the beginning of time. You got to decide for yourself. And if you're in a senior position, you got to decide for your business what's acceptable from a company culture perspective, because it represents your business. The only thing AI added to that is significant ability to go where no man has gone before, if to borrow a line from Star Trek. You can do stuff that wasn't doable. You can, let's take an example, and I'll take an extreme, and I'll give you two very different examples. One will be very obvious to people, and the other is going to be a very good question for people to ask themselves. So the very obvious one is many salespeople get some of their compensation based on success. You sell X amount of dollars for the company, you get X amount of dollars in your pocket. But that's part of your compensation package. People count on that to pay for their kids' education or for their boat. It doesn't matter, like whatever financial commitments that they have. It's not a bonus. It's you expect to make X number of dollars this year. If you make 75% of that, 25% of the things you're planning to pay for, you can all pay for. And so it's very stressful and it's very tempting to push the boundaries of what's acceptable to get another sale at the end of the quarter to get whatever next level of compensation you can open for yourself. Again, that was always the case. But now you can fabricate facts. You can create videos of testimonials of people that don't exist. You can show 55 proposals that you've written to get hired to a job when you've never written a single proposal. You can do things that you just couldn't do before, or that was very, very hard and expensive to do. And you got to decide whether that's okay or not, A, for yourself. But again, as an executive in a business, it has to be very, very clear to the employees what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, what aligns with company's culture and what's not. So that's one question. The other question is a lot more problematic. Let's say you are a healthcare company. You have gazillion data points on patients from years of collecting data. You might be able to either cure or provide better treatment to new patients based on the data that you have. Is it okay for you to mine that data with AI to get to these outcomes? Those people never gave you that information. They never gave you permission to use their data for research. They never gave you permission to use their personal healthcare stuff to develop future whatever. Should you do that? It's an ethical question, right? The data is there, the technology is there. Is it okay to take data you're not supposed to, that you have fairly, like you didn't steal the data, it's your data. Is it okay to use that data to develop future healthcare solutions to provide better healthcare to the world? I don't know the answer, but this is an ethical question that AI generates that didn't exist before. And there's multiple questions like that across multiple aspects of businesses.
So we know all about ethical AI and why it's important. And throughout this episode, we've learned a lot from you, right? And it's probably one of these episodes that people are going to have to go back and listen to 3 or 4 times to really extract all the information from. What I want to know is how you first learned about AI. Like, what was the moment you first heard the words artificial intelligence? And how did you overcome that initial hurdle of this is technical and complex and complicated and I don't understand it, and what's a neural network and all these different things?
So it's a good story, actually. So I had, after I sold the travel business, I stayed there for a couple of years and then I left and I kind of was looking for what to do next. And I started a podcasting agency, and it's not exactly, but that's going to save us time, with a business partner that ended up backstabbing me about 2 years later. And it ended up really, really bad. And I was depressed and I didn't know what to do. And eventually I just left because I couldn't deal with the crap that it was bringing me from a very personal, emotional perspective. And lawyers were involved. Like it was really ugly. And it ended up in October of 2022. And then, signed the dotted line, left the company, and then ChatGPT came out a month later when I was in limbo and thinking what I want to do when I grow up. and 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 ChatGPT came out, and I had time because I wasn't working, and I'm a geek, and I was a CEO of tech startups most of my life, like for, I don't know, 15, 18 years. I was in senior leadership positions in tech startups. Some of them I founded, some of them I joined in early stages. I've never written code, but I'm definitely a tech-oriented person. And I started playing with this very, very early on. And I started talking about this with friends. And a lot of my friends are CEOs and so on. I'm also an investor in several different businesses. So I spoke to those people about it. And it was very clear to me that this is going to be a game changer. And I started diving deeper and deeper. And people started inviting me to consult to them because they knew me and they knew I had time and they knew I'm deep into this thing. One of the companies I invested in is a online cohort-based training platform. And I've been mentoring the CEO for like 3 or 4 years. And one of the things I told him, said, listen, we need an AI course. And he's like, yes, okay. Can you find me somebody to teach the course? I'm like, yeah, I'll teach the course. It's like, you you sold businesses, you run companies, you sit on boards, you want to be a teacher now? I'm like, yeah, I love it. It's like, okay, you're it. And so in April of 2023, I taught the first AI business transformation course. And I've taught at least once a month since. In many months, I've taught 2 of them. So hundreds of business people have been through it. But the barrier for me wasn't that big for 2 main reasons. A, I'm a geek. I love this stuff. Like, I really, going back to the curiosity, I was very curious and I wanted to play with it. But B, I had time. What I tell a lot of people that are, and again, I talk to a lot of CEOs and C-suite people and VPs and so on, and tell me, well, I don't have time to even get started. I'm like, I get it. You have a day job. You have a company to run. You have a stack of stuff to do every week that you can't get to. Adding to that, okay, I need to learn AI requires very serious prioritization process to understand that this may decide the future of your business. And it's more important, and that goes back to your second question, what do you tell people? This might decide the future of your company. It is more important than some of the lower priority stuff that you are doing on the day-to-day, which means you have to, for the livelihood of yourself or your business, of your employees, you have to free time on your calendar to work on AI in your business. Start with a course, get some training, read about it, find a podcast, a YouTube channel, TikTok, whatever, however you consume content. Find the right people to follow them religiously, like continue. And I tell people, follow different kinds of people. Follow people who are practitioners who share what they do. Follow visionaries who tell you what's coming around the corner in 2025, 2026. And follow people who are people like you, people in business who are looking at AI and so on, because the combination of these 3 things, practitioners on the tactical side, how does that impact businesses on the business side, and what's coming, will help you make better decisions for your business. But you have to free time to do that, just because this might be as important as your next raise if you're in a startup, or as deciding the strategy and the pillars and the rocks and whatever you want to call them for 2025. It's as important.
I can empathize with that sentiment as well, of being so busy that you don't have a moment to even implement AI. We obviously report on AI every single day. We have a podcast about it. We do use AI internally, but like more than anything, we are a media company, right? So carving out the time beyond writing the newsletter and dealing with ad sales and publishing the podcast and publishing shorts and running the socials and developing a B2B enterprise program and speaking to those clients, developing outreach, gets real hard to focus on how AI can integrate. And something we found incredibly useful is we hired a team called WebForge Development, and they came in and did what they call an AI audit or an AI readiness report. So they come in, they speak to all the different stakeholders in your business, they understand the different pain points, they understand where AI could be implemented and streamline things. And at the end of that, you still don't have time because you're a CEO. So you say, all right, bring in an implementation specialist to implement these things. I understand the value of it now. Now I want you to come in and implement those things. And eventually, as a CEO, maybe 6, 12 months down the line, you do actually have a bit more free time from these processes being automated. So with AI, like, I think, don't try to do it all yourself. External help is much needed. Someone that focuses their entire attention and focus on AI and coming into your business is incredibly useful. And I agree with the sentiment that it's going to affect pretty much every single business process out there that we can imagine. And this is how I want to finish it off, actually. So what you've just given us there is the reason why a CEO should recognize the importance of AI. But for a regular Joe Smith on the street, why should I not just bury my head in the sand and ignore it? Why should I just not continue to be naive? Why should I actually take note of what you're saying?
Okay, so I have two very simple aspects of the answer. One, if you completely ignore it for the next 2 or 3 years, you'll be the Amish. Meaning, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I, in many cases, envy the Amish for their choice across multiple things that they have that I don't. But that's what's going to happen. Meaning, the world will go through a very extreme transformation, and it is not going to be the same world we know today, and it's going to happen very, very fast. And it's going to impact almost everything in our lives, not just work. We talked all about business in this podcast, but it's going to impact your personal life as well. It's going to impact your finance. It's going to impact the economy, social, like it's going to impact all of that. So you can say, well, I'm not interested. I want to live in my little community and play golf with my friends, and I couldn't care less. That's fine. But the world will move on. And it's a choice you're making. And again, it's not a wrong choice, it's a choice. The second thing is, from a opportunity perspective, both personal opportunity as well as business opportunities are opening at a pace that were never possible before. Like the things you can do as one person right now is being amplified dramatically. I'll give you a simple example. People say, oh, what does that have to do with my personal life? Planning a trip used to take hours to do. You can now do this at a much better output and outcome in minutes or a lot less time. Creative outlets. A lot of people saying, oh, AI is going to kill creativity. No, the other way around. There are many, 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 many people who have creative ideas who do not have the skills to create the output of their creative thoughts. And so they do nothing with it and they just continue with their day. And now you can create music, you can create art, you can create images, you can create video, you can create books, you can do stuff that if you didn't have the skill before, you just couldn't do. You can now do this. So there's multiple aspects where understand how the world will work. It's just like not moving forward with AI is like taking somebody from 40 years ago and saying, hey, here's the internet. One morning, it's like, huh? What? How? But think about a world without the internet, without cellular phones, without having access to every piece of data we want in our fingertips, without communication across the globe for free with voice and video that you can, I talk to my family on the other side of the planet every single day, and I can see them and I can see and it doesn't cost me anything. how can somebody from 40 years ago even comprehend that when they had somewhat of a phone line? Go 100 years back, that even didn't exist. And so it's just going to happen again, only significantly faster and with much bigger implications.
I don't want to say a thing more. Isar, thank you for coming on the podcast. I appreciate your time. I've really enjoyed this conversation. If people want to get in touch with you, find out more about what you do and who you are, how do they go about doing that?
First of all, since we're listening to a podcast, then I will request everybody to open their phones right now and give Liam and the podcast a 5-star review, because this doesn't come for free. He works hard to make this thing happen. And as a podcaster, I know that. So pull up your phone, write a review, say how much you're enjoying it, how much you're liking it, what would you like to see, what kind of content, communicate. I'm sure Liam would appreciate that. So that's number one. While you're out there, you can go and search for the Leveraging AI podcast, which is my podcast, as I mentioned. That's probably the best way to learn from me for free at scale. We publish 2 episodes every single week. One, as we mentioned, is a very tactical how-to with some practitioner, and the other is AI news, like what happened in the AI world this week on stuff that you need to know. So that's the podcast. The easiest way to communicate with me is on LinkedIn. So my name is Isar Meitis. It's spelled Isar Meitis. It's a mouthful, but the good news is I'm the only Isar Meitis on LinkedIn. So if you found an Isar Meitis, that is me. So reach out to me, send me a DM. I will gladly connect with you. And as we discuss, I do courses, I do consulting, I do workshops for companies. I help companies with implementation. I connect companies with other implementers for bigger projects, software development, lakehouse implementations, et cetera, et cetera. So any kind of AI help you need in your business, come and talk to me. I help a lot of people for free. If I'm not the right person, I will introduce you to the right people. But yeah, the easiest way to get a hold of me is on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Isar, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. This was awesome. Great questions, great conversation. Thank you for doing this.